Welcome into the Ultimate Cavaliers Show. Mikey McNuggets joined by Tony Pesta of Fear the Sword today. Today's episode of the Ultimate Cavaliers Show is brought to you by Epicor. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, Epicor will equip you with the right tools to move forward. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. Tony, the end of the regular season has come and gone. We are now awaiting the Cavaliers' first-round playoff matchup. We have the 7-8 games tonight, the 9-10 games on Wednesday. Then the Cavaliers' opponent will be revealed on Friday. So we can't really preview the playoffs because we don't know who we're previewing. What we can do is hand out some fake end-of-season awards. And I figured we could have some fun with this. I love Jason Lloyd, but he hates hypotheticals. So I kicked Jason to the bench. I called Tony up into the starting lineup. And Tony, how you doing first and foremost? And you're ready to have some fun with some completely fake hypothetical McNuggets created end-of-season awards.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'll do my best to Ty Jerome impression coming off the bench today, filling in. I'll do everything I can, but I'm looking forward to it, man. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Can I give out an honorary award before we start, just real quick?
Please.
I think it's unanimous because this has won the award every single year since the beginning of time. Cleveland gets the award for most unpredictable weather yet again because yesterday it was like 70 degrees and sunny. Today, I just went on a walk before we started this, and I was freezing. It's windy, it's cold, it's cloudy. I'm ready for spring, just like I'm ready for Cavs basketball. Hopefully, the Cavs are more consistent than this weather because it's killing me right now.
No, the wind was outrageous today. I walked my girlfriend's dog earlier, and we walked outside for like 3 seconds, and it immediately said, "No, I don't want to be here. I don't like this. Like,
yeah,
why is it so windy?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't make the weather. That's Mother Nature's choice." But with that being said, Tony, let's dive into our categories. We have 8 end-of-season make-up awards. I know 7 of them. I gave you the honor of coming up with an 8th that I literally have no idea about until we get to it. But we will start with our first award of the night, and that is the stat of the year. Tony, there have been some incredible statistics from the Cleveland Cavaliers this season. But in your opinion, what has been the Cavaliers stat of the year?
Yeah, so I'm gonna break the rules a little bit. I'm gonna give you 3 quick honorable mentions and nominees because, like you said, there's so many great statistics, and you could get really, really nerdy with it if you want. But the 3 ones, I'll give you 3 quick nominations, and then my final one. First, I've been mentioning this on every show that I've been doing on the playback streams, on my show with Quincy Carrier. I've been bringing it up so much. I tweeted it, but I think it's really important to note. The Cavs this season had the best record in the NBA against top 10 teams in net rating. And if you look at last year, they were like 10-16. They had a negative record. This year, they're the best in the NBA. I think that's a huge sign of their growth, of their maturity. Another sign of maturity, my second honorable mention, Darius Garland. He's shooting like 70% in the clutch this season. He became the team's closer. This is a guy who historically kind of struggled at the end of games. Now he is in the running for Clutch Player of the Year. I don't think he'll win it, but that was another huge sign of growth. The last sign of growth and another stat, Evan Mobley this season hit more three-pointers than the previous 3 seasons of his career combined. He had 82 this year to just 67 the previous 3 years. But with all that said, with all those impressive stats, the number one thing to me is very simple. The Cavs finished with the number 1 offense in the NBA this year. And when you entered the season, the one thing that you were hoping they could accomplish, because we knew that they were a good defense. We've seen it. We know that they can be a top 3 to top 5 defense. Kenny Atkinson came here with one goal in mind, and that's to figure out how to make this all work on offense. And not only did they make it work, but they blew the doors off of everybody else. They've been the best 3-point shooting team all year. The offense has been moving around like the 2015 Golden State Warriors. The ball movement, the off-ball movement, everything top to bottom has clicked in a way that I don't think anyone could have imagined. So to me, the stat of the year has to be very simple. Cavs, number 1 offense in the NBA this year.
There were so many nominees for this category. We could have gone in a million different directions. And my second choice will come up later in this podcast. So I'm going to give you my top 2, but without giving you an honorable mention because I don't want to spoil another category. My stat of the year is playing off something Tony said. Prior to this season, Evan Mobley had made 3 3-pointers in a game just once in his career. 3 seasons, just 1 game where he made at least 3 3-pointers. This season, he had 13 games in which he made at least 3 3-pointers. That is not slight growth. That is not minimal improvements. That is a tangible gigantic, gargantuan, titanic leap in three-point volume, three-point efficiency, and the confidence to step into those threes time after time after time and knock them down. Evan is going to have to continue to shoot well in the playoffs to spread the defense out when historically defenses crunch in during those postseason late game scenarios. Evan's ability to shoot threes is going to put defenses in a pickle. What are you willing to give up? Will he continue to shoot with that accuracy and volume in the playoffs? I hope so. I have no reason to believe he will not. But to me, the stat of the year is the most tangible sign of improvement in any individual offensive player this year, which was Evan Mobley, who we said had to shoot more threes and had to become more of a three-point threat, going from one career game with 3 or more three-point makes to now 14 in his career, because 13 came this season alone. An incredible improvement from one Evan Mobley.
For sure. It's a great pick. I've said this a bunch, but think about in years past, if Mobley even hit 1 3-pointer, we were like, let's go. You got to post on Twitter, all caps, Evan Mobley hit a 3. Oh my God. This season, he's had so many games with 2 3-pointers or 3 3-pointers. And it's like, you almost don't even mention it. You're just like, yeah, it was a pretty good offensive game for Mobley. We'd be going crazy if he did that in the past. So I think that's a huge sign of just like, yeah, he's changed expectations for himself. Now, when he hits a couple threes, if he even hits 1, it's a complete afterthought. We're looking for 2, 3, maybe even more. So huge leap from Evan Mobley. And that's obviously one of the biggest reasons why they ended up with the best offense in the NBA, is because Evan Mobley went from like a 15 point per game scorer to, I think he's just below 19 points per game. But again, the minutes were down too. So huge leap from Evan Mobley.
All right, our second award of the night. Tony, the silliest Twitter discourse of the year. This one could have gone, once again, a million different directions. I appreciate, enjoy. I love Cavs Twitter. There are some smart discussions. We'll get to some of the smarter discourses later on in this award ceremony. But there have also been some incredibly silly back and forth that I admittedly have been a part of, because I try to defend common sense, and that is not always as common as one may think. But Tony, in your opinion, what was the silliest Twitter discourse of the year among Cavaliers Twitter?
This is such a great category, and it got me thinking that this may have been the fewest time that I spent on Twitter in a few years, because I had been doing the live streams. I wasn't on my phone during the games. Then afterwards, I'm writing for Fearless Sword. So I realized I kind of missed out on a lot of the discourse, but I also think because the Cavs won 64 games, it wasn't as bad as it has been in years past.
Wait,
with that said,
time out. I'm disagreeing, because every loss is magnified to a degree. True. One loss was, oh my God, what's not working? Guys, they're 17-2 in their last 19 games. Like, it's okay that they had one off shooting. And I actually think some of the Twitter discourse this year was a little sillier than normal, because losing was so uncommon for this team. Fans did not know how to react to a poor shooting night or to a bad performance and a bad showing. The Cavs had 2 or 3 throughout the 82-game regular season when you go, they just didn't have it tonight. And I think that led to some ridiculous back and forth, not necessarily that I was a part of, but just that I would observe on the timeline. So do you want me to go first? Because I have a big picture one.
Well, I have one that will build off of what you just said.
Perfect.
Not only did Cavs fans, whenever we lost a game, it was magnified, but this is legitimately, maybe the volume of silly takes was a bit lower this season, but this one takes the cake. This is the winner to me. You remember when the Cavs were in the middle of a franchise record 16-game winning streak, and we had fans who were upset because they weren't winning good enough. They weren't winning by enough points during the winning streak. This was crazy. Like, to be fair, they weren't, absolutely destroying opponents like they did in their other 2 double-digit win streaks. But we had fans calling it, and I even, went back and forth in the discourse too, calling it a slump. They're on a 16-game winning streak. We're talking about, are the Cavs in trouble? Can they sustain this? I'm like, guys, they're winning every game. I don't care if they're only winning by 5 points. They've won 16 in a row. And so that was extremely silly. And the last honorable mention is they went 0-4 in the preseason, and a lot of people were worried. And it's like, we have 70 years of proof that the preseason doesn't matter in the NBA. So that was funny too. And I had to toss that in there.
Great choice, Tony. To me, this was the one where I felt the strongest about having the correct answer. So I'm not saying you're wrong, because that is a great choice. But to me, the absolute silliest Twitter discourse we had this season was after the loss to Houston in Houston, when Darius Garland missed those free throws down the stretch. And all of a sudden, because of one poor showing in the clutch, Darius Garland suddenly was not a clutch performer this season. And when you
This is
dive
good.
into some
Yeah.
of the statistics, not only is that just completely untrue and easily proven false by a myriad of different analytics, box score, counting stats, whatever you want to name, Darius was one of the single most clutch players in basketball this season, arguably the most efficient scorer late in games this season, and then followed it up a few games later by hitting the dagger buzzer beater against the Pistons in Detroit. For those 2 days where I had to defend Darius Garland's clutch resume, when he was shooting at the time 72% from the floor in clutch situations and 63% from three in clutch situations, and at the time had more combined blocks and steals than turnovers in the clutch. And by the way, he finished with 20 assists in clutch moments this season, just 4 turnovers at 5-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, the best in basketball. That little stretch, Tony, where people were genuinely trying to argue that Darius wasn't clutch this season because he had one poor clutch performance and 23 incredibly efficient, strong, clutch player of the year caliber clutch performances, to me was by far, hands down, unquestionably the silliest Twitter discourse of the season.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's just a case of people like stubbornly reverting back to their biases coming into the season because, yeah, I mean, like Darius, he had struggled in the clutch in the past, but he had shown time and time again, even against Oklahoma City in the first game, which I think that was before the Houston loss, right? When Donovan wasn't playing good against OKC, and Darius steps up and closes the game against the best team in the NBA, against the top seed in the Western Conference. And then just a week later or whatever, he has the bad performance in Houston. And I get it. It was ugly, missing free throws at the end of the game. That hurts. But yeah, I mean, you can't, this is true for like basically every silly take. This is like one common theme they all have in common is just like, you can't overreact to one game. If you're basing your take off of one game and not the larger sample size, you might be dropping a silly take. So that's true I'm sure I've had bad takes. Everyone has bad takes, but you got to take a step back and be like, is this true for all the games, or is it just true for this one game that I'm choosing to focus on?
That is very fair, and I'm never going to blame fans for the emotional response. And if you wanted to crucify Darius for not performing in the clutch in that game, that's fine. So be it. He did not play how the Cavs needed him to play to win that game. He missed free throws. He made the silly foul. But to then say Darius isn't clutch because of the one game that would override, like I said, the other 23 prior very strong clutch performances, I wasn't here for. So I'm glad we were able to set the record straight on that. Next award, Tony, another one with multiple options here. What was the most pleasant surprise of the year for you for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
So the thing is, you could just straight up name this the Ty Jerome Award, but is pleasant surprise an undersell? Is that the undersell of the year for Ty Jerome? Because he was more than a pleasant surprise, right? Like nobody saw that coming. And so we're going to talk a lot about Ty Jerome moving forward. So I might zag here a little bit, but Ty Jerome coming literally out of nowhere, right? Like, I mean, nobody expected him to even really be in the rotation. I remember I dropped a take at the start of the year saying, hey, if Ty Jerome can just do his best to replicate what Ricky Rubio did, not saying he's going to be as good as Ricky, right? But just if he could play some of the similar roles, right? And people on Twitter crucified me. They said, no way. He's going to be nowhere near as good as Ricky Rubio. And I made the mistake. I backed off my take. I didn't hold it down. I jumped off a Ty Jerome island. And I said, you guys are probably right. I got carried away. And then like 1 month into the season, I'm watching Ty Jerome and I'm like, is this the greatest basketball player ever? Are we going to have statues downtown of Ty Jerome? Is his jersey, is the number 2 jersey going up in the banner in the rafters? And it's not going to say Irving on the back. It's going to say Ty Jerome. That's how crazy this breakout year was from Ty Jerome. It came completely out of nowhere. I can't believe that he's not in discussion for most improved, that he's been basically overlooked for 6th man of the year. I know we'll get to snubs and stuff like that, but that to me, pleasant surprise is an undersell. He was more than just a pleasant surprise. He was completely out of nowhere.
So I completely agree. I went a different direction because we do have a Ty Jerome Moment of the Year award coming up in a little bit. So he is probably the right answer, but to take a little differentiating answer, I went with the fact that the Cavs were able to acquire DeAndre Hunter without giving up Jalen Tyson or their 2031 first-round pick, which to me, I was shocked. Frankly, when I saw the details of that trade, the fact that Cleveland was able to hang on to both of those two and still acquire a player. And I should have killed that. Whoops, my bad, guys. The fact that they were able to get DeAndre Hunter without giving up either of those two assets, arguably their best two assets, and still bringing a guy in DeAndre who time after time after time after time has proven he fits right in with the Cavaliers' core four, or with their closing lineup if he's in for Allen, or if he's playing at the three alongside Dean Wade and Evan Mobley, has been a perfect fit into what Kenny Atkinson and company has asked him to do this season. So I was shocked they were able to pull off a deal without giving up their best two assets. And because of that, I went in that direction for my first official pleasant surprise of the year. But the truth is, Ty Jerome came out of absolutely nowhere. He came from the depths of hell and turned into the most impactful bench player on a minute-by-minute basis this season. And that was truly a surprise, unless you knew Ty Jerome had that in you. And the only people that knew that were Ty Jerome and his family. So shout out to Ty. We have an owner award for Ty in a sec. Before we get to our next award, Tony, we got to get a quick ad read in here. Guys, you know FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers on FanDuel can bet $5 and win $250 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. Just head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS to get in on the action today, especially with the NBA playoffs set to tip off. There is no better place to bet than with FanDuel. Today's show is also brought to us by Epicor. Epicor helps make everything easier. It makes your life easier. Epicor is a tool that every business needs because Epicor knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. From your small business with big dreams to growing enterprises with global visions, Epicor will equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier finds the lane. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That is www.easierwithepicor.com. All right, Tony. Award number 4 is the Premature Snub of the Year award. Now, the Cavaliers are up and should be in contention to win basically every award on the market outside of MVP. Mobley for DPOY, Jerome for Most Improved, and six-man Hunter's in the six-man conversation. Kenny's the Coach of the Year, favorite at the moment. They should have at least 2 players on the All-NBA team. So let's get mad before it happens. What is your biggest premature snub of the year for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I hate to do it. I hate to accept it. Listen, I'm manifesting the voters are going to do the right thing with Kenny Atkinson and Evan Mobley. I believe they're going to take home the awards that they deserve. But I have to go on the rant. I have to, forgive me, I'm going to wax poetically about Ty Jerome one more time here.
Do it.
Listen, 6th man of the year, with all due respect to Peyton Pritchard, right? He had a great season. He's definitely deserving of the award. If he wins, I'm not going to think, oh man, how the hell did that guy win it? But the reason why it's disappointing, and honestly, just to be completely real, it's a little embarrassing and lazy that the national media, not even for a second, entertained that someone other than Peyton Pritchard could win this award. He entered the season as the betting favorite, literally ran away with it before any of this even started. And so despite the fact that Ty Jerome and even someone like Malik Beasley, to me, have just as strong, if not stronger arguments than Peyton Pritchard to be the winner, Peyton Pritchard was just uncontested the entire way. And if you look at it this way, right, I know you've spent a lot of time talking about this, Ty Jerome and Pritchard's stats are almost identical, despite the fact that Pritchard plays 10 more minutes per game, and he basically plays starter minutes for them, right? Jerome shoots better from every spot on the floor. And sure, I get a lot of people, they explain, well, Peyton Pritchard, he played 80 games, and, he was always available, and he played all these minutes. He gets a lot of credit for that, but Ty Jerome played 70 games. It's not like he barely qualified or he wasn't out there. He was out there for 90% of the season, and the reality is his team was so good that he got to rest a couple games. He didn't have to play as much. And so, again, Pritchard's deserving, but to me, the reason why this is the biggest snub and the one that makes me just a little annoyed is that we couldn't even give him honest consideration. He didn't even get like a chance. It felt like no matter how good Ty Jerome played, there was this huge gap that no one was willing to discuss or build a bridge for Jerome to be in the discussion. So that annoyed me personally.
I don't disagree. I think on a permanent basis, Ty Jerome was by far the most impactful bench player in the league. If I had a vote, which I don't, I'd actually vote Malik Beasley over Peyton Pritchard. Do you know, Tony, in the history of the NBA, only 3 players have ever made 305 threes in a season? And those 3 players are now Steph Curry, James Harden, and Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley's shooting statistics this season are better than any shooting season Klay Thompson ever had in his career. Now, granted, he started just around 20 games for Detroit this season, so numbers a little bit inflated because he played so many more minutes. But that doesn't matter when you're looking at the award requirements for six men. If I had a vote, it would be Malik Beasley, just because that team was so desperate in need of shooting. And he came in and once again replicated Klay Thompson level shooting. He's not Klay Thompson as a player, don't get me wrong, but he made three. He led the NBA. Malik Beasley led the NBA in 3-point makes this season. And I would have lost a lot of money if that was the preseason bet that you would put in front of me. So I agree. Peyton Pritchard's going to win the sixth man of the year. I don't think he should be the winner. I don't think he should finish second, if we're being honest. I'd actually vote him third. So just to be a differentiating voice here, I'm already mad that Kenny Atkinson isn't going to win Coach of the Year. And I can see a million different reasons as to why someone would want to vote for JB Bickerstaff or Ime Udoka or Mark Dagnall, who, by the way, they just won 68 games and isn't even remotely in the conversation here for Coach of the Year. Kenny Atkinson took the Cavaliers. Virtually the same roster. They obviously traded for DeAndre Hunter in the middle of the season, but for the majority of the year and the majority of the roster, it's the same roster that we thought underachieved in the playoffs the last two seasons. And this is not a playoff results award. This is a regular season award. And jumping from 48-49 wins to 64 wins, while not playing for anything of stake in the last month of the season. I genuinely think if the Cavs wanted to win 70 games this season, they could have won 70 games this season, Tony. They took their foot off the gas and prioritized health for the playoffs over winning regular season games, which I 100% agree with that philosophy, for the record. This is not a knock on them whatsoever. But they jumped 15 games from a team that was already a top 4 seed in the playoffs last year into the de facto, bona fide, unquestioned number 1 regular season team in the East. They had nothing to play for in the month of March. And yeah, they struggled a bit, but that's because the stakes were already wrapped up. They had the 1 seed essentially locked. They had nothing to play for. And if the voters do anything but give Kenny Atkinson this award, I will frankly lose a little bit of faith in humanity. Because although I am not taking anything away from the job JB did this season in Detroit, or what Ime's done in Houston, or what Mark Dagnall has done in Oklahoma City. And that jump, I also think, is maybe not as impressive because I think they were better than Cleveland last year and they were slightly better this year, but they were playing for a little more. The fact that it was the same roster from last year to this year with a completely new offensive philosophy, with making the core four click in ways that we had not seen prior. We'd seen it for many stretches, but not in the same way. For playing 11, 12, 13 guys, and every single guy who played this year played at least to expectation. Nobody was a disappointment this season who played. The way they managed the health, entering the playoffs about as healthy as you could possibly imagine. Kenny Atkinson, to me, is the unquestioned Coach of the Year. And although I do think he will win, and it's the one award that you look at Vegas and say, okay, Vegas probably has the betting odds right, that and Sixth Man of the Year, even though I disagree with how Sixth Man of the Year is going to play out. If Kenny doesn't win Coach of the Year, I'm going to be livid. And I'll just say this on last thing real quick, and then Tony, take it away. I would vote Evan Mobley for Defensive Player of the Year. I think 5 guys have a legitimate, bona fide. If you feel a little more strongly about Amen Thompson or even Zubac or Dyson Daniels, and there is a legitimate case to be made for those. I just won't hear the cases for other Coach of the Year candidates.
I agree. I think Coach of the Year, to me, like it's crazy when you just think about preseason expectations. And I'm not going to boil it down to just that, but just to focus on it for a second. There were a lot of people, myself included, who thought, hey, the Pistons could actually be a lot better than people think this year. They've actually added a lot in the offseason. JB's a good coach. Cade Cunningham, you just felt like he was due for the leap that he's had. A lot of people thought that they would be pretty good. Now, I still think they exceeded expectations, but not by a lot. Like, I thought they could definitely be a playoff team. The Cavs, literally nobody thought they would do this. Even myself, the Cavs optimist, someone who's, always, I get criticized for being too optimistic about the Cavs. I said 58 wins, 57 wins at most. Going from a good to great elite title contending team is more difficult than going from a lottery team to a playoff team. Now, I'm not saying that either one is easy, but one is just harder. And you know how we know that it's harder? Because JB wasn't able to do it in Cleveland, but he did it in Detroit, right? And that's not taking anything away from JB. I think he should be second or third.
Too, by the way. Took him from
and he did it in Cleveland too. Yeah. So he had already proven it. And it's like, I hate to be this reductive, but Kenny, this is the guy who replaced JB and immediately did a better job with the same roster. Think of all the questions so many people thought that the core four was just unsolvable. Couldn't do it. It's never going to work. It is a fundamental flaw in the roster. You can't have a good offense with two bigs out there. Can't do it with the two ball dominant guards. Kenny Atkinson said, all right, bet. I'm going to do it. Watch. And he did it immediately got them to click. Yep. The vibes are so much better too, which is an important thing for coaching. Like, just look at how JB, again, not trying to discredit him or anything, but he had lost the team last year. This year, Kenny Atkinson, it seems like he's got total buy-in from everyone. So I'm with you. Kenny Atkinson should be running away with this award. And like the defensive player of the year stuff, it's more competitive for sure. I would vote Mobley, but it is more competitive. I would be almost more upset I think it would be a bigger snub if Kenny lost. I would still be more upset if Mobley lost defensive player of the year, just because I feel like I'm more invested in that over like a coach of the year award. But I do think it would probably be the bigger snub if Kenny didn't win, because he just clearly has the best case in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Mobley thing, I saw Chris Fedor tweet out earlier today that he thinks 5 guys legitimately have a case. I agree. I would vote Mobley. I've made my case. I don't have to rehash it here. But Amen Thompson has a legitimate case to be DPOY. Dyson Daniels has a legitimate case to be the DPOY. Zubac, who I went into this whole exercise not thinking that he was anywhere near the conversation, has been incredible defensively. He deserves to be in the conversation. The advanced analytics do favor Draymond. I think it's unfair to give Draymond the benefit of the doubt for this 29-game stretch to close the season compared to the first 50 whatever games where he wasn't nearly as good, but he's had a good defensive season. There are other guys with cases. I don't think it's as slam dunk as it is for Kenny with Coach of the Year. All right, so this is my favorite category, this next one. The biggest, I'm still not sure about this after 82 games of the year award. Tony, what are you still unsure about with this Cavs team, despite an entire regular season of evidence?
Yeah, there's certain things you can look at, but for me, the one thing that I'm still waiting to get like a clear, definitive answer to, it's going to be the DeAndre Hunter next to the core 4 lineup, and it's because we just haven't seen much of it, right? So let's be clear. They added DeAndre Hunter because he's the guy that you were missing in order to beat Boston. That's why you went to get him, or that's what we'd all assume, right? That lineup in the regular season, they only played 73 possessions together, so we didn't really get to see what, this lineup looks like, the lineup that we're expecting we're going to need to get to the final round. And so the thing is, when they played, the Cavs destroyed everyone in those minutes. That 5-man lineup against a very small sample size, but they were in the 100th percentile for net rating at plus 28.8 per 100 possessions. They were in the 100th percentile in offensive rating and the 99th percentile in defensive rating. The only thing that they didn't excel at was defensive rebounding, where they ranked in the first percentile in defensive rebound percentage, which is the bad. You don't want to be first in this one. That means 99% of the NBA, 99% of the lineups were rebounding better than you. So that's not very good. And we know that DeAndre Hunter theoretically is a great fit next to the core 4, and it's had fantastic results in this small sample size, but in a playoff setting, where is it going to land? Are they going to be able to grab a rebound? That seems like something that might be important, because you don't necessarily have to dominate the boards, but you can't be dominated on the boards. You can't get crushed on the glass, and those lineups were getting crushed on the glass. Even just something with a slightly bigger sample size. I didn't write down how many possessions. I think it was closer to 200. The DeAndre Hunter next to Mobley and Allen, that was in the 0th percentile. They were literally the worst. They just can't grab defensive rebounds. So that's something that's been an X factor, a point of emphasis for DeAndre Hunter. And to his credit, he's rebounding more in fewer minutes here than he did in Atlanta. I think he's posting a career high in defensive rebounding percentage. So he has improved. It's clearly something that he wants to focus on, and he has the tools to do it, right? Like, he's 6'8", athletic. He can grab rebounds if he's active and engaged. The question is he going to do that in the playoffs? We're going to have to wait and see. And does that Cavs lineup continue to be, just an absolute, just a train, or not a train wreck, sorry, the opposite way, just a destroyer in the playoffs, where they were in, 28.8 net rating? It's insane. Is that going to carry over to the playoffs?
We're going to find out when they play Boston, which hopefully we get to a Boston series, because I don't think Kenny's going to make the starting lineup change unless they're playing Boston. If they start to play Boston, their starts against the Celtics this season have not nearly been good enough. Boston's attacked Max Strus and switches, and I'm going to put my money on the fact that is when we'll see a lineup change. So it's a great answer. One I didn't even consider for this question, because when I thought full season, that does count, but I was thinking big picture. I'm still not quite sure about after 82 games is does Isaac Okoro have a role on this team in the playoffs? Has he improved enough as a jump shooter to make teams actually guard him in a playoff situation to where the Cavs can utilize what he does very well? The things he does very well. His point of attack defense is arguably the best on the team. He has become a very valuable screener and decision maker out of the screens this season in a way that I didn't think was possible in his offensive game. He has surpassed any of my expectations that I had for him previously in terms of the decision making in the short roll, in the playmaking area as the screener in the offense. Kenny's used him in ways that I never would have thought to have used him. But in the playoffs, his three-point shot has disappeared. And we saw against Boston last season. We saw against Orlando last season. We saw against the Knicks the season before. Teams are going to leave him wide open and force him to take wide open jump shots. And at points during the regular season this year, he was one of the most efficient and effective three-point shooters in basketball. Then he had the shoulder injury, not surgery, excuse me. And after that, his three-point shot was completely unreliable. He'd get hot for certain spurts, then he'd get ice cold. And then he would make a few, and then he would miss a bunch in a row. And heading into the postseason, if I asked anybody straight up, do you trust Isaac Okoro to make an open three right now? I don't think anyone feels super confident, even someone who has as much stock invested in Isaac Okoro as my co-host here, Tony Pesta, who is maybe the founder of Okoro Island. I just don't know how you have faith. And in a playoff series, with the spacing of the court just getting shrunk down by the increased defensive intensity, with advanced scouting, with playing teams 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a 2-week stretch, the Cavs can only play Okoro against the elite teams. They could play him against Orlando, Atlanta, whatever, and they could play him in a second-round series for a little bit. But will he have minutes, and will he have a role against the Bostons and the OKCs or whoever they face in the NBA Finals if the Cavs are lucky enough to make it that far? I don't know the answer yet. And I hoped I would after 82 games. I thought I had a very good feeling at about the midway point of the season, and then my confidence has teetered since. So, Tony, give me your 2 cents on either why I'm wrong for not believing in Isaac Okoro, or are you even, as an Okoro defender, in a little bit of, I don't know, honestly, at this point, for a playoff series and his potential role for the Cavs?
I think the questions and the concerns are definitely fair. And like the reality is he's got to prove it, right? And that's what's frustrating. You kind of mentioned it. The first half of the season up till that shoulder injury, it felt like maybe he was putting it together, and then he takes a step back, and now we're at this point where we're not quite sure how to feel. And regardless of how he played in the regular season, he was always going to have to prove it in the playoffs. And I've spent a lot of the last month or so talking about Okoro right now. It's like, wow, he's doing a really good job as a screener, and it's really helpful when Okoro is able to set screens, because a lot of times opponents will hide defenders on Okoro. But if he's coming up and setting the screen, then Mitchell and Garland just get to target somebody and mismatch hunt. So that's helpful. It's helpful when he's rebounding and adding his defense. But in the regular season, if he misses a couple threes, you can kind of overlook it. In the playoffs, if he goes 0 of 3 from the corner and they're just leaving him wide open, you're not going to be able to have him on the floor, right? So there are things that he has to prove. Again, I do like that Kenny Atkinson has, rather than just kind of dumping Okoro in the corner and making everything rely on whether or not he hits an open three, he's had him come up and set screens. He's had him cut a little more, so then it's not as reliant on just knocking down at the corner three-pointer. But the reality is there's still going to be plays and moments where opponents are going to dare him to shoot. And if he either doesn't take the shot or he can't hit them at an efficient rate, he's not going to be able to be on the floor. So it's going to be really interesting to see. The good news is I honestly think, like, if we're thinking of an 8-man playoff rotation, you get the starting 5, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, and then probably Dean Wade or even Sam Merrill before you really have to play Isaac Okoro. And maybe you need his point of attack defense at some point, but it's not a situation where I feel like if he's not on the court, they're screwed at all. I actually think if he's the 9th man in your rotation and you're able to put him in for defense every once in a while, you're still in a pretty good spot. So it's nice that Okoro's role is not as monumental as it was a few years ago, because not only does that mean the Cavs are in a better position, but I think it takes a huge weight off of his shoulders as well, especially with the way Kenny's using him, where he doesn't need to be like a 3-and-D wing like we all want him to be. He can kind of play more of a Josh Hart role, where it's like, just go do the dirty things, go be the garbage man, and if it's not working, we'll pull you and we'll play other guys. But if it is working, all of a sudden you could help start a run or shift momentum of a game. So I still have faith. I'm still on Okoro Island holding it down, but I think it's completely fair to have concerns because, I have no idea what the weather's going to be like on Okoro Island in a week from now.
It's basically like Cleveland weather. It can
it's
change
even
on
worse.
a day-to-day basis, hour by hour. Tony, this actually leads us right in. I'm going to switch the order of one of our last two topics here because this leads right into my answer for this next category, which was the smartest Twitter discourse of the year. We talked about the silliest earlier. If you allow me, I'm going to go first on this one, Tony, because this leads right off what you said. But I think the smartest Twitter discourse of the year is the back and forth on Sam Merrill versus Isaac Okoro as the potential ninth man in a playoff rotation and who should be getting those. I don't want to call them backup 3 minutes, but in that wing between those two, who plays, why, and is it situational? I've seen people convinced that Sam Merrill has blackmail on Kenny Atkinson because he's gotten more minutes in some of those situations. I think it's pretty easily explainable, at least in the regular season. Kenny Atkinson has prioritized space and less defense over more defense and less space. So the rest of the offense can get flowing and continue to cut and backscreen and move in the way it has with Okoro on the court. It's just a different gravity and it's a different geometry for the defense than when Sam Merrill's on the court. One of those guys you have to chase around every screen and is a threat the second he crosses half court. The other is one that you don't feel terrible about leaving wide open if the situation occurs for you to call a double team or to send help to a certain other part of the court. So to me, the back and forth between Sam Merrill and Isaac Okoro has actually brought out some of the smartest takes I have seen from Cavs Twitter. And I think there's valid points on both sides. I think Sam maybe played a little too much and Isaac played a little too less. But I also think that prioritizing spacing over defense, especially in the regular season, makes a lot of sense. And I just have enjoyed having some discussions with different guys and girls that I've interacted with on social media about why one of these guys seems to be playing a little more than the other and why they disagree. So to me, that has been the most enjoyable back and forth. And I call it the smartest Twitter discourse, but maybe it's the most enjoyable Twitter discourse because I do see legitimate value and legitimate reasoning on both sides of the fence here. And when you have that, you can have a good back and forth discussion to make everyone smarter.
Yeah, no, it's a super interesting discussion to have because it's such a clash of what you want on the court, right? Like Sam Merrill's the 3-point sniper, Okoro's like the gritty point of attack defender. And I think it's going to be circumstance to circumstance in the playoffs, who you end up playing. That's kind of, when you're talking about the 8th or 9th man in the rotation, that's what it comes down to at times. And so I think seeing both sides of the argument has been really interesting. I will say some fans have been too harsh on Sam Merrill. Like you said, they think he's got blackmail on Kenny or anything. It's not hard to see why he's out there, right? Like he is still, even when he's, first off, he's shooting, I don't know the numbers, but he's not shooting nearly as bad as Cavs Twitter seems to think he's shooting. I think it was still, 37%, somewhere around there. It's not the elite number that he was last year at times, but it's not like he's out there just chucking up shots, shooting 30%. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it was still respectable. So I think fans are a little harsh on him at times. And one thing, as much as I'm the biggest Okoro defender, the thing is in the playoffs, it's easier for Sam Merrill to make himself annoying to target on defense, like just to put in some effort on defense, be annoying, don't make yourself easy to pick on. It's easier for Merrill to do that than it is for Okoro to do the stuff that Sam Merrill does on offense. Yeah. Like no matter what game you're getting from Okoro, he's not flying off a screen and getting defended like Sam Merrill. Even if Sam Merrill is 0 of 3, 0 of 4, opponents are still chasing him around screens. He's still providing spacing. So there's a much higher baseline, a much higher floor for Sam Merrill. You could argue there's probably even a higher ceiling if he's draining threes, because then it's like, oh my God, it's a Cavaliers. What are we going to do? But I still think that Okoro has a valuable role if he's able to stay on the floor and do the things that we want to see from him. But Sam Merrill, to me, this whole discourse, it's so interesting because you can make the case for both of them. So I think that's a really good choice. My pick for this award, I would say the entirety of Cavs Twitter and all the best Cavs creators joining forces to push the Evan Mobley Defensive Player of the Year agenda. That was really enjoyable, especially when the Draymond Green ambush happened and everyone stepped in. Like we rallied the troops. Yeah, we rallied the troops. We kept this from getting out of hand. And in all seriousness, if Mobley actually wins the award, he needs to send a box of chocolates to Fear the Fro, because Bob was on the front lines doing everything he could to defend Mobley's case, and you a box of chocolates too. Honestly, you guys both did fantastic work on that podcast where you broke down the entire race. And yeah, I think that was one of my favorite things, and just seeing Cavs Twitter unified on something for once. And like, we're going to explain why we believe Evan Mobley is the defensive player of the year. That was awesome.
That was good. Bob does a terrific job. If you guys don't listen to Fear the Fro pod, I highly recommend it. That was by far the nerdiest podcast I had ever done. And I thought, I love numbers. I think I found someone who loves numbers even more than I do. So that was a blast. And it is cool when you get to see, I think when we did the Knights of the Cavs table during the All-Star break, Tony, I was like, it's the Avengers of the Cavs. Well, this really called upon the Avengers, the end game, to hopefully push Evan over the top to win this award. We got to take one more break here, Tony. Our next read is from Monarch Money. If you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Today's show is also sponsored by Buckeye State Credit Union. Buckeye State Credit Union is a new sponsor to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show family. We are thrilled to have them on. If you're unfamiliar with Buckeye State Credit Union, let me introduce you to the financial friend you didn't know you needed until now. They're a local brand that offers a wide range of products, from saving accounts to mortgages and auto loans. They have a local store in Shaker Heights, but they also have 5 brick and mortar locations across the state. At Buckeye State Credit Union, their core values are what sets them apart: connect, simplify, and adapt. That's what makes Buckeye State Credit Union the right choice for you. For more information, head to buckeyecu.com. Buckeye State Credit Union, your money simplified. And I have to hit this button. Okay. And with that, Tony, the final 2 awards of the night. My favorite, and then your surprise award. But the Ty Jerome, that might be its own word, but Ty Jerome moment of the year. So many choices. The pleasant surprise of the year, my league pass moment, highest quality per minute player. That's a McNuggets stat that he won also. Tony, the floor is yours. Your favorite Ty Jerome moment of the year. There's so many great ones to choose from.
You're right. There's so many, but I'm going to pick the first moment to me that let me know that Ty Jerome, he might actually be that dude. The first moment that got me out of my seat, that stunned me. It was the game against Golden State back in November.
Great choice.
And I remember, I believe it all started, I didn't check, but I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, it started with Isaac Okoro blocking a Steph Curry 3. The ball goes to Ty Jerome. And then in transition, he pulls up from the logo like he's Steph Curry, like he's trying to prove something. And I literally jumped out of my seat and I said, oh, I didn't know Ty Jerome was capable of this. I didn't know he could do this. And I don't know how many points he finished with that game, but it felt like he was torching Golden State all night long. And he continued to prove moving forward that he really is that dude, that he'll come off the bench. He's the first guy I've ever seen that comes off the bench and pulls the heat check 3 on his first attempt, but is actually efficient at doing it. There's guys that, are audacious, sorry, can't talk, with their 3-point shooting. Ty Jerome is the first guy who has like Deion Waiters level confidence, but like legitimately has the efficiency to do it. He'll just come in off the bench and pull it from the logo like it's nothing. And so that first game against Golden State was what opened up my eyes and said, wait, there might be something here with Ty Jerome. And again, he proved it all year long.
He's incredible. I have so many. That was one of the nominees for me, by the way. When he had 8 threes, 8 of 8 from 3 against Philadelphia, another nominee. The game that stands out most in my mind was against New Orleans when they blew him out early in the season back in November, where he had 29 points, hit 7 threes, and for an 8-minute stretch in the second quarter, I swear to God, he was better than Michael Jordan was at any point in his career. That didn't sustain for the rest of the season, but for that 8-minute stretch in the second quarter, that was the best basketball player I'd ever seen in person. He had 26 against Toronto, 26 against Memphis. He had 25 on 2 different occasions, both against Portland, once at home, once on the road. He had 24. He had 20 points 13 times this season. But my favorite Ty Jerome moment of the year, Tony, was in that overtime win against Portland here to start the month of March. Why? Well, he finished that game with 25 points, 6 assists, 6 steals, and 5 rebounds. That was one of 6 25-5-5 games all season. The list of players this season that recorded a game of at least 20 points, 5 or more rebounds, 5 or more assists, and 5 or more steals and/or blocks is an exclusive list of some of the best players in the NBA. Victor Wembanyama, Jokic, SGA, Jalen Williams, Bam Adebayo, and your boy, Ty frickin' Jerome. To me, that was almost my stat of the year because when you just put on paper those 6 names, you say, what could these possibly have in common? Well, what they have in common is they put up one of the most rare statistical performances of the season. And in that game against Portland, that was not an empty game stat line. The Cavs came back from double digits, won in overtime. Ty Jerome hit shot after shot, and that was one of the first games we saw DeAndre Hunter make shot after shot late. And those two, because Darius did not have a great game, those two sparked the comeback and allowed Cleveland to win in overtime. And I have a buddy who works for the Portland organization, and I will never forget this, but I met up with him after the game before they flew out to Philadelphia the next day. And I go to dap him up in the tunnel, and he goes, Ty effing Jerome, are you serious? And I said, you're the 5th coach this year that said that exact same thing to me after the game. And I will never forget that moment. So for me, that game against Portland, crushing the solo, one of my best friends, will always go down as the Ty Jerome moment of the season.
That's amazing. I mean, I can't even imagine how many opposing fans learned who Ty Jerome was for the first time in the most excruciating way possible. You're like, especially the games where Darius or Donovan were out, and you're like, oh, okay, we might have a chance tonight. And all of a sudden, it's like Ty Jerome, 26 points in 22 minutes. Who the hell is Ty Jerome? Like, where did this come from? He was just unbelievable all season long. And I needed to pull out the thesaurus and find out new adjectives to describe him, because the only word that I could think of is unbelievable. Because again, we mentioned at the start, but you could have never predicted this.
Nope.
This is unbelievable what he's done this year.
I asked Kenny, I forget what game I asked him. I just said, there are these stretches where Ty Jerome becomes the best player on the court. Like, did you ever foresee this coming? And that's where he gave us no, obviously I never did. And I'd never envisioned him being Steph Curry for 4-minute stretches for us, which is maybe my favorite soundbite of the season. So Ty, thank you for everything you have done, not just for me and Tony, but for Cavs fans across the nation. You have been by far the most pleasant surprise and enjoyable, unexpected nugget that has made this 64-win regular season so much fun. Tony, last award here. And I don't know what this is, because this is the Tony makes up an award and doesn't tell McNuggets what it is award. So Tony, what is the award that I have to answer on the fly?
Okay, I went above and beyond. I made 2 very quick ones. All right, we can hit them quick. The first one is the This Meant Something to Me award. So it's the individual game or performance that meant the most to you this season, the moment that changed your expectations for a player or the team the most. I'll give you an example. Evan Mobley scoring 41 and hitting 7 threes against Charlotte. That meant something to me. So the This Meant Something to Me award, which changed your expectations of either a player or the team the most?
Can I give you 2, but they're kind of tied together?
Sure.
The first was that game against Golden State early in the season when Golden State came to Cleveland and got the absolute crap beat out of them. And Draymond Green told Jason Lloyd after the game, this team reminds me of us when we made our turnaround. And Jason texted me before he posted that article and said, listen to this, make sure I'm not crazy. Did Draymond really just say this? And I got the audio. I said, yeah, he said, you have to write that right now. And Jason, who never writes the night of a game, because I love Jason to death, but he has kids, he likes to get home, stayed at the arena. It's like 3 a.m. So that was my first indication. This isn't a fluke. And then when they played Oklahoma City in Cleveland in that first matchup between the two teams, and Evan Mobley, with the game on the line, took one dribble left, went between his legs, went into Hartenstein's chest, and finished over him. That was the coronation and the official, we are here, Evan is here. This team is not a fluke. There is nothing fluky about this. They can win with offense. They can win with defense. And Evan Mobley has emerged as not just a very good player in the NBA, but a guy that should contend in the next decade for all NBA teams, all defensive player of the year, or all defensive teams, defensive player of the year, all-stars, you name it, he should be in that conversation. So those 2 moments were the it just meant more to me moments.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would have picked the OKC game as well. Just the fact that Donovan Mitchell struggled, and then Darius Garland and Evan Mobley showing their maturity, showing their growth, and saying, we got it. We're going to close this game against the best team in the Western Conference. That was awesome. All right, the second award, and I'll admit they're pretty similar, but there's an important distinction. This award is the Smiling Through It All, Can't Believe This Is My Life award for the happiest moment of the Cavs season. And we'll exclude Ty Jerome. No Ty Jerome moments, just because there's so many. We talk about him a lot. What was the happiest moment of the Cavs season for you?
This is going to be personal, but I forget what game it was when they started the season 15-0. But do you remember the Frog?
This was my pick as well. Yep.
So the first day the Frog was a thing and it came on the court, I was in the locker room after that win, and I don't even remember who was doing the scrum, but someone was talking to the scrum, and and that's happening to my right, imagine. And Darius and Donovan were there in the corner where their lockers are to the left. They weren't set to talk yet. And I heard Darius say something about a frog. And I go, Darius, do you know what was the frog? And Darius looks at me, and Darius could not be a nicer guy, for the record. Like, genuine smile on his face. He goes, that was Moondog. And Donovan goes, what? And Darius goes, that was Moondog in a frog suit. I was like, no. Well, he's like, come over here, look. And he shows me the picture that Cavs had just tweeted out. And to see, like, they're human. Like, NBA players are humans. They are normal humans, and you can have normal conversations with them. Sometimes we put them on a pedestal because they're athletes and they're professional and they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, they're just humans. And for me, that little, like, tiny interaction of just pure, it's not media player, it's just person to person. Donovan not knowing that it was Moondog, and Darius excited to tell other people that he knew something that we didn't. Just like when I get a scoop and I want to tweet it out or text Jason or whoever and be like, have you heard this? To me, that was like the peak happiness of this season. And no one else will understand why, but that was a moment where I got a chance to connect with those guys in a way that I hadn't really before, and it's carried on. So to me, that was my happiest moment of the season.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, I think just like Donovan Mitchell tweeting recently when he hasn't been playing, to me, showed that too. Like, yeah, he's literally just like us. He tweets just like any other member of Cavs Twitter. It's so funny to see. And I, for different reasons, I wasn't in the locker room, but I also picked the 15-0 start, the frog dancing on the court. Everyone, just such a fun time. We had Uncle Cleveland outside playing music, the 50 Cent covers. It was the peak fan experience. We're undefeated. We got this random frog showing up. We got the conspiracy theories. It was Moondog that time, but is there another person with the frog costume? All this stuff.
It wasn't Moondog the whole time. I still don't know who it was after that, but that first night it was Moondog, and then since it's a great mystery.
Yeah, just the whole communal aspect of it. It was literally the peak fan experience. It does not get much better than that. Team's undefeated. You got all these crazy fun things happening. Everyone in Cleveland is just so happy. That to me was the happiest moment of the Cavs season, of the regular season at least. Hopefully we'll get an even happier moment in June sometime this year is my hope.
Tony, we got a couple comments I want to read here before we wrap up. But first one comes from Jared Guzik Music, who says Garland needs to stay clutch in order for the Cavs to beat Boston in a series. He can't collapse. I don't think either of us are going to disagree with that. Jared also says, who do you have winning the playing games? Let's do at least tonight. Atlanta, Orlando. Who do you think wins?
Man, I want Orlando to win just because I think they would be the more annoying team for Boston. Just rough them up, get physical. I kind of think Atlanta's going to win, though. Trae Young in the play-in tournament is a demon that I want nothing to do with if I'm Orlando. So I think I'm picking Atlanta tonight. I'll
disagree. I'll go with Orlando because I just think they have a chance to muck things up defensively. Yeah. And I just don't know if they get a good Paolo game, they're going to win. If they don't, then it could be not. Freddie B says it's the playoffs. It's not going to be easy. JG from Space says, I still have faith they'll have a relatively smooth pass to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they haven't looked as unbeatable as looked at times during the regular season. Nice Jetpack says, hosted by McNuggets and Pesto. Damn, y'all making me hungry. And last but not least, Michael Shrupska says, I forgot about the frog, so I'm glad we could bring back a happy memory for everyone. Tony, you're the best. Where can people find you on Twitter? And plug Fear the Sword and the Junkyard Pod while you get a chance here.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Tony_Pesta. That's my same name on YouTube. I do the Junkyard Pod. We're going to be talking lots of Cavs stuff, getting ready for the playoffs. We have a very special guest coming up. Probably will be posted on Friday, so stay tuned for that. And I also do the live Cavs watch parties on playback.tv/Fear the Sword. It's where you'll find my writing as well for Fear the Sword, the blog. So really excited. We're locked in. It's playoff mode. I'm ready to go. And thank you for having me on, man. This was a really, really fun episode.
Anytime, Tony. I appreciate you tuning in. We are going to have Jason back to preview whoever the Cavs are going to play in the playoffs later this week, so make sure y'all tune in for that. But for now, I'm McNuggets. That's Tony Pesta. You can find him on Fear the Sword and at Tony Pesta on Twitter. And we'll be back tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show starting at 11. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And remember, go Cavs. Peace.